I'm on call this week, and it's been such a hectic week. I'm surprised that I found time to record this in the first place, and hopefully I'm able to edit this to ship out on time.
Yeah.
But sometimes on call can get really hectic.
I totally understand that, man. Like, it's so stressful to, be around your phone all the time, like knowing when it's gonna ring. Sleep cycle gets messed up, everything gets messed up, but I guess it's just part of the job, right?
Yeah,
Gotta
I mean,
do what
I'm
you
not
gotta
saying that on call is bad.
Yeah.
It definitely teaches you a lot,
Of
and
course,
it's
yeah.
it kind of it's a good reminder that what you do impacts people,
Exactly,
and that's why you
yeah.
need to do this. But boy, do I like these kind of weeks where yes, issues after issues, and all of them are like new ones that you have not seen.
Yeah.
It is definitely.
It is so exciting and so stressful at the same time. I just
Yeah.
hope you get like a good night's sleep after
Yeah,
this week.
I think it depends on what kind of person you are. Like, if you're a pessimistic, you can be like, this is a stressful week. And
Yeah.
if you're a positive person, you can be like, I'm learning a lot this week.
I think you have to like have a balance of both to actually make it through the week.
So true, so true.
Let's get started then.
Yeah.
Welcome back to another episode of Version Control. Before we get started, I'm Soumya. I'm a software engineer at Microsoft, and with me, like always, I have.
I'm Sarthak. I'm a software engineer from Amazon. I just can't get over this awkwardness of introducing us, every time.
I know. Somehow it just does not come naturally.
Yeah, I mean, I have given so many public speeches at this point, so many presentations.
Yeah.
But every time I have to say my name, I just freeze up. It's like, me. I'm Sarthak. I'm from here. I was born here. I was brought up here.
I totally relate.
Yeah.
But either way, coming back to our episode today, we are doing a continuation of the topic we picked last week, which was annoying developer habits. We had fun recording it. I think people had fun watching it.
I got so much feedback on
yeah.
that episode, and people related to it so much. I also got so many points. Some of them I have brought here today. Like, I'm going to mention it because people are like, hey, this is an annoying habit. And I was like, yeah, you're right. This deserves to be mentioned.
Yeah. So, yeah, I think it was worth to make a part 2. Right?
Definitely, yeah. And I can't wait to unload some of these with you. And I hope you have a good list too.
Of course.
Yeah.
It's right up here.
Yeah, of course, another annoying habit are developers who don't take notes. That is one of them.
I do take notes, just not for the podcast, I guess.
Yeah, sure. Okay, yeah. Now we know who's the serious one about this podcast.
Okay, but either way, jokes aside, you want to get us started with the first one you have on the
Yeah,
list?
of course. And this one is actually something I wanted to mention in the first one, but sadly lack of time was there and we couldn't.
Mm-hmm.
And like, one of the major annoying habits that I find in developers, and especially in young developers, I think, is that they don't appreciate complexity as a metric when they're coding, right? I think complexity plays a huge part in every engineering cycle, right? Whatever you write, after 2 months, if you look at it and you're like, what is this anga banga I have written?
Of course.
Yeah, right. So this happened to me in a recent feature, actually.
Yeah, it's also like sometimes you write the code and then 2 months later you're looking at the code and then you're like, which idiot wrote this? And then you do a git blame and it's like, I'm the problem, it's me.
Yeah, it's like, I'm clearly dumber, crown on me.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, complexity, I'm not talking about like, complexity in the terms of like O of n square. No,
Of course,
I'm talking about readability of the code. I'm talking about presenting the code, right? So there's a great example that I think I've shared with you before, is of how to write an if statement.
Yeah.
So you can write a if statement which is concise, and you can write a if statement that is, what do you call it? Like multiple lines, which explains the code more.
Yeah.
I will always opt for the second one.
Of course,
Maybe for the viewers I'll display like, this is the one I'm talking about. Like, which is the concise way
You're
to write it.
just making your job harder. Now you have to put it in the exact same place.
Yeah, I
in
know.
editing.
So this is the one where you can write it in one line, and this is where you can, optimize it better. So, that I think is one of the pet peeves. Have you seen this?
Of course, yeah. I think there is... I think what you're trying to say is basically sometimes you opt for writing lesser lines of code instead of writing the more readable or more efficient lines of code, right?
Correct. Yeah.
So it's like sometimes, yes, writing lesser code is important, but I think people...
Why?
I mean,
lines
maybe
of code does not affect how the
of
code
course,
will work.
yeah.
I think you're one of those annoying
No,
developers
I'm
who do
not.
this.
No, I'm not. But what I'm trying to say is like the code, it doesn't matter if it's like more lines or whatever, because eventually working in a company, working on a product where like, you have multiple people working on the same thing, it's just more important to be readable and efficient, that the next time somebody tries to make changes to the same repo or the same file, they should be able to understand what did you do and what was your thinking about behind it.
Truly, I agree. Yeah. So, I think definitely this is something I would say if you're transitioning into mid-level engineer or senior engineer, you need to get complexity the attention it deserves.
Yeah.
If you're gonna be in a project for multi-years, year long, you need to appreciate complexity, and you need to keep that complexity demon contained in one particular area. You don't want it to creep up in the project everywhere.
Of course. Yeah.
All right.
So,
Go ahead.
what is like one way do you think we can control this thing? Like, how do you teach young devs that? You said it's pretty common in young devs, right?
I think there's no straight answer to this. I think it can be an episode on its own, okay, if we want. But I would say the best way to contain complexity in any problem that you're solving at an architectural level is to make sure that the interfaces and abstractions you cut actually work. Okay, if you have the right abstractions, you can hide away complexities in certain areas and not let it be bothering other areas of the project. This is very highly abstract, I know. Okay, it is very hard to understand in high level terms. Because even cutting that abstraction right is a big thing. It's not like you can be like, yeah, this is the right abstraction, cut, right? So, I don't want to go too much into the depths of it, but that's the road you should explore if you want to go there.
That makes sense. That makes total sense.
All right. I don't want to stick on this topic for too long. You shoot your next one.
Okay, so the first one I had at the top of my head was code reviews, right? And one of the things that bother me really about code reviews is that sometimes people don't really review their own code before like raising a pull request. You will leave like very basic things like spacing in there, or like test something you wrote for like just testing it out. You will leave that in there and you will be like, hey bro, please review my code. I think that's very annoying to me. Like, look at your own code once. Like, when I get dressed in the morning, I would look at myself in the mirror to make sure everything is all right before I step out, right? It's just a similar thing to that. I don't want other people telling me there's food in my teeth, right?
No.
So just look at your code before you send it to me.
Yeah, and I'm surprised a lot of people don't do this.
Yeah.
Like, they just raise a CR. They don't even wait for builds to pass. They'll be like, ship, right? So, like, look at it. It's the most perfect thing I've ever written. I don't even need to review it myself once. So, definitely happens a lot.
Yeah, and there's also, like, this other side to it where, like, I will leave a comment on the PR and 5 minutes later it'll come, like, even more broken than before.
That I think is on you. You didn't. What if your comment was not good enough to explain it to them?
Why do you always have to doubt my abilities? For my viewers, the reason for my low self-esteem is this guy.
If you're low self-esteem, then I pity the people who have actually low self-esteem because you're setting the bar very high for them. But speaking of CRs, okay, another thing I hate about CRs, okay, is people who raise a CR and after 2 hours they're like on the main channel bump CR reminder. I was like, bro, you raised 4 pages of CR. You expect me to just drop everything and just start reviewing this CR? That is not happening.
Yeah.
So what do you think is the ideal time before you remind someone of a CR?
I would say like a day is
24 hours.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would say like a day is a good number if your like project is like, if your feature is urgent and stuff. And I'm pretty sure like if it is like really urgent, the people you're sending the CR to review will also realize the urgency.
Yeah.
So if it's not being reviewed, I think a day is a good cooldown period.
Correct. Yeah. And I think there's also something on the reviewer. If you can't get to it on the day, then drop them a message that when you expect to complete it before they have to put a reminder, because that whole reminder cycle just adds. Like, is the person reminding doesn't feel good, the person getting reminded doesn't feel good, so just go ahead and proactively tell that, hey, it will take 3 days to review.
Yeah, I think my principal engineer should really watch this. We have a really weird cycle of like getting my code reviewed now.
Okay, that's okay, interesting. Yeah. This is an indirect form of protest you're doing. Okay.
Yeah, but all in all, my point was basically that, before you raise a CR before you raise a pull request. Review your own code like you're reviewing somebody else's.
Definitely,
So that
yeah.
you can make the necessary changes. It is lesser work for the other person. It is lesser iterations on your own code. Helps everybody, doesn't it?
It definitely does, and it's a very good habit to pick up, and you can transition. I think people will definitely appreciate the level of CRs that start coming out of you. You'll definitely become a bar raiser there.
Of course.
Yeah. So I think people from Amazon, whenever I use bar raiser, will be like, "Oh, this guy's from Amazon."
It's so ingrained in you at this point.
Yeah. It is ingrained, but it makes sense. I like it in general. It might be controversial. Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
So shoot
Should
the
I
next one.
shoot the next one?
Yes.
Yeah. So recently I built a tool, okay, which could scan text files for keywords that you want.
Okay.
Okay. The purpose I built it for was because I had to replace a string across multiple files, and no way I'm gonna do that manually. So instead of spending 1 hour to do it manually, I spent 4 hours to build the tool, and then spend half an hour.
Just the developer thing to do there.
Yeah. Right. So because in future, the next 5 years, if this problem comes once more, then we can do it efficiently.
Of course.
Okay. But yeah, coming back to topic. So I built a tool and I was just playing around with it, and I decided that why not grep my project workspace and find out how many to-do comments are there.
Yeah.
And they came out to be 800 plus. Okay, and some of them, yeah, and some of them were written like 3 to 4 years back, like to do, add this condition, and yeah, I know, right? So this is my next annoying habit that I found, like people adding to do comments and then forgetting about those to do comments that, it doesn't matter.
Yeah, this is part of like the whole word we use called technical debt, right?
Yeah.
Pay your technical debt.
Yeah, this is more like document your technical debt and never address it.
Yeah.
So it's not even hidden technical debt, it's like right there and nobody cares. So
Yeah, this is super annoying. I
do you
agree.
have to-dos in your code wherever you work?
Of course, yeah, there's like so many to-dos, and sometimes it'll be that to-do will be so descriptive, like to-do will be fixed in this work item, and then there'll be like a Jira ticket number attached to it, and then you open the ticket and nobody has touched that ticket in like 3 years. So
Exactly.
What is the purpose really?
Yeah, then you go ahead and add any update on this.
And no, there'll be often times that you would find that this is assigned to some person, and then you try to search for that person, and that person has already left the company.
Yeah, this is the
just so
endless corporate cycle.
Yeah, it's just so hilarious.
Yeah.
But I
Alright.
agree. If you are, what's the right way to address this? You tell me.
I don't think there is. Okay, tech debt will always be there. Okay. But I feel like if your to-dos are good to track, if you're about to come back to do it in 1 month, if you're writing a to-do that you're not looking to address immediately, it is better off as a ticket in some tracking tool
Instead of
code.
Yes.
Because nobody else knows about it till they
Yeah.
hit that code, right?
Yeah.
So that's my only advice. Like the situation, I totally agree can happen. Just dealing with it is something you can do better. You have anything to add?
I think I agree with that. And I think people who review code as well, like code reviewers, should also kind of like ask the right questions, like why is this a to-do? And then you take the decision together. I guess that's how you
again, something
minimize
between
it.
the reviewer and the person who pushed the code, so to sort out in
Of
general.
course, yeah.
Alright, shoot me the next one.
Shooting in the next one? Okay. So this one's slightly weird and it does not happen as much, but sometimes you kind of end up meeting people who have like transitioned from somewhere else, and in every conversation, every problem you try to solve with them, they will cite their previous experience that this used to happen this way in my company, this used to happen this way previously. Again, I am totally open to change. Sometimes those ideas are amazing and I feel like you should incorporate good ideas from wherever you get them, right? But sometimes I feel like when people do that, they kind of also hinder their process of learning, right? And I feel like it gets very annoying at a point where you can't reach them and you can't teach them new things. So that is one very niche annoying habit I find about certain people sometimes.
Yeah, I see what you're getting at.
Yeah.
I think the right thing there is if you like, I also have switched multiple companies, right? Even I come from different companies.
Of course.
And they had different cultures, right? And even work ethics and productivity ways.
Yeah.
But I think the right thing is, instead of directly bringing your previous company's things here, like procedures here, whatever you have learned, instead of that, you first understand what is happening here,
Of course.
and
Yeah.
then take a call whether what is better.
Yeah.
Instead of blindly saying that, hey, that is better, right?
Exactly.
So that's what you're, I think,
Yeah.
arriving at.
Yeah. I think as a developer over the years, you are only gonna get better if you learn to adapt, and you also are always open to change and open to learning. Right?
Correct, yeah.
Those two things matter so much in the long run, but sometimes I feel like people kind of put that on the back burner, and it can be annoying to work with sometimes.
Yeah, and I think there's also one more thing that this bucket falls into. So as a developer, I always say this is respect what is already there.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
Because that has been built over years. It doesn't mean that it cannot be improved, but it can only be improved iteratively.
Yeah.
And you have to build that procedure
Yeah.
where you can build it. But that respect for the legacy, whatever is going on, is very important, because that is your bread and butter.
Of course.
That is what is running the place and, paying the bills.
Yeah.
So you need to make sure you understand it and
I
fit in it.
totally agree with this, because you wanna change stuff, right? You wanna make things better. That, hey, what we did 5 years ago, we didn't do it right. You have that realization at some point, but you also have to kind of pay respect to the fact that at that moment that was what we needed.
Yeah.
Right? So that's a great point to add.
Yeah. All right. Should I shoot the next one?
Yes, please.
Okay. So this one is coming from, for developers. Even I was guilty of it for a long time in my career. All right. And I think first I'll say what it is. Okay. So a lot of times developers debate about stuff. Developers debate in general a lot, right? Like their design discussions and whatever happens, people bring points, and a lot of times in those points, people will bring arguments about something that they assume they know how they work. All right, like for example, if you're arguing about a service, they'll assume that this service works that way. They have never worked with a service, and they will argue like they have built the service.
Yeah.
Right. And I think the basic problem that occurs there is most people think, or at least this annoying habit, people think that everything is built ideally in this world, but actually everything is built realistically in this world. And if you don't know the code there, there's a high chance you're missing the n number of hacks that have been used to make it work there. Right. So this is one of my pet peeves. This is why I keep pushing developers, even I work with, to go back and actually see how the code looks, because at the end of the day, code matters. Code talks, right?
Yeah.
There's nothing else that can change what is happening in the
Yeah.
code. You can talk all about it. You can have whatever discussions you want. Code talks. So go look at what the code is, and then come back and tell me whether it is good code, bad code. See what the hacks are there.
Yeah. Or call the SME in the meeting for that particular service and be like, hey bro, if I'm right, am I right or not?
Yeah. So what do you think? Have you faced this?
I think so, and I think that is what sometimes makes design discussions really hard, because the other person you're talking to believes in that they've cracked it so much, but then you're there with a document with all your research, like just try to get the point across. So I think so, and I think like design meetings should really be focused on like, instead of assuming, you be data driven. I think that's the right way to go about this. That instead of assuming, if you have dependency on the other service, you kind of like research beforehand, talk to people beforehand, document it. That's the only way you can solve this problem, I think. No assumptions.
Yeah, definitely no assumptions. And
Yeah.
I think in general, I guess in the developer world, there's a lot of pressure on everyone to win arguments, right? Because everybody thinks they're right.
Yeah.
And they want to go there. And you can only get your point across if you remain calm and you throw the right data at people.
Exactly,
right?
yeah.
And if that cannot convince them, then you try to get the closure of the room with majority and move ahead.
Yeah.
Right? Because at the end of the day, you can't convince everyone either.
Yeah.
You want majority there, like who align with you, and you move ahead with it, so that like you know that okay, I have enough support on this, people agree, so I can move on.
Exactly. Right.
Hmm.
So next
ahead.
one.
Yeah.
Okay. So this is also on similar lines of like people being too stuck to their opinions. But have you ever met like the kind of developer who has like really great ideas of like how we should refactor things or how we should improve things, but refuses to like break it down into steps or docs? It's just a vision with like no action.
Oh yeah, and I think this I have faced this, and like people come up with refactors all the time which are
Yeah.
not needed, right? And I have a very like different approach to refactoring. I guess it's not really career helpful; it is engineering helpful.
Yeah.
Okay, but I believe refactors should arise out of a need only.
Yeah.
Otherwise, if it is working, it's fine. We don't need to touch it. Why, like wake up the devil?
Yeah, like I have this thing, like if it's not broken, don't fix it.
Yeah,
Right.
exactly right. So
Refactoring obviously is necessary, like we just discussed previously, right? Like you have to respect the legacy stuff, but at the same time you also have to work on constantly improving it. So there are times when it'll arise out of need. There are times when you should definitely do it, but just saying that, hey, this is like a huge module, we should just break it down into chunks without actually, again, not being data driven about it, or not having the vision to see that how many dev cycles it'll actually take. I think that effort is kind of not necessary.
yeah, and as I said, like refactors should come out of a need, and like if my ultimate goal, like whenever I think of refactoring, is if I don't do this refactor, I am taking on an amount of tech debt that is unprecedented. Like it'll actually hurt me in the long
Yeah.
run. That's when I do the refactor.
Of course.
Right.
Yeah.
Or if it is too big a risk or it is too complicated, again, complexity demon comes into play
Yeah.
here. I love calling it complexity demon for some reason. It's just, imagine complexity as, a sea with horns. Okay.
Thanks
Yeah.
for sharing that mental image there.
Yeah. All right. So maybe add a couple of eyes. Okay, never mind. We're getting deviated. Okay, so
Okay.
yeah, I totally agree with your point
Yeah.
there. That is one habit, I think. But what do you think people can do to, understand like what is the right way to do this then?
I think you need to look at code. You need to really ask yourself the right questions. Again, I believe in like everything needs to be data driven, right? Because everybody has.
No, but when
so
you
much-
say data driven, can you dive deep into what that
so
means?
the kind of data I say that if I had this huge chunk of class, right? I have this huge class with like 10,000 lines of code, and you have an idea of refactor that, hey, we're gonna break this into 2 classes, we're gonna make an interface out of it so that extensibility increases, right? That's a good point to have, right? That tomorrow if somebody has to add a functionality, they don't need to go ahead, make changes in 10 different places. It can just be optimized into one thing. That is a place where it is definitely needed, right? But if it is some sort of a class which is a helper, which just contains helper function, and you want to go ahead and refactor it, break it down, then at that point I don't think it's necessary, because it's still doing its job, right? It's still understandable. So I think those are the kind of questions you need to ask yourself, like, does it help other developers do their job easily, or does it like improve some sort of performance? Those are the metrics that you need to look for, instead of just cleaning up things.
That definitely makes sense, and I think
Yeah.
that's what data driven actually means here,
Yeah.
to actually identify whether this will be useful for you.
Yeah.
So yeah, awesome. I am through my list. Do you have anything else to?
I think me too for now. I'm pretty sure like we'll have more
Yeah,
in
I
the
guess
future.
habits also keep developing with new things. Right now we have this bump of AI
Yeah.
in all companies. Even my company is using an AI tool to
Yeah.
assist in coding and all that. Assist in coding, but like I guess that itself bring new habits, because once engineering gets its hand on anything,
Yeah.
think different ways to work will come out, and some of them will become annoying.
Yeah.
So
But before we close out, do you think there's a annoying habit about you that other people find? There's a habit in you that other people find annoying?
that is a very tough question.
Yeah.
They're definitely there.
Hmm.
I'm sure. Okay. I don't think there's any developer who can be not annoying, because this is where minds are clashing, procedures are clashing.
Yeah.
Right. So they will
This
definitely.
is human nature, right?
Yeah. I do think my arguments can get a little bit, what do you call it? I get a bit persistive of my point sometimes. Like if we are debating different points, and I have data for my points, and this is something I'm trying to change actually. So this is something that is
Yeah.
happening. As we have said, if you should be data driven, you should throw out your points as much as possible. But sometimes you'll realize that the other person is also data driven,
Yeah.
right? And he's also throwing data at you.
Yeah.
So those are the toughest kind of conversations
Of
to
course,
have,
yeah.
right? And I feel like in those conversations sometimes I'm so engrossed with presenting my data, I'm not absorbing what he is presenting. Right. So those cases, I'm trying to improve. I think this can be annoying for the other person. And yeah, that is one thing I feel. But yeah, go ahead. You tell me one now since you asked me.
I'm actually thinking.
Yeah, you should have thought of an answer before asking.
So I think my annoying habit is one of the stuff that we discussed actually. I don't document enough. So
Okay.
I own a lot of stuff, but I've often realized that since I don't put in the time to like create a wiki page then and there, tomorrow if some dev asks me, it is like very hard to explain things to them, right? So that is one thing I've been trying to constantly work on, but I'm pretty sure like it bothers a lot of people that you wrote so much code, but I can't find any explanation on like how to debug things.
Yep.
So that is something I'm working on. Yeah.
Okay. By the way, Soumya, we know that you don't document enough. At the start of the episode, you didn't document even your points that you're gonna say.
I know, right?
Yeah.
Why am I like this?
See, hence proved. I'm always right. I said at the start of the episode, you don't document. Okay.
Yeah, time for me to beat you up off camera.
Alright, go ahead. Sign us out.
Okay, alright. Thanks for watching. Hopefully you liked the 2 episodes we did on annoying habits. If you have more, please drop them in the comments. Give us a like, share, subscribe, and keep watching us. See ya. Bye-bye.